to Cinema Wellman. I'm your host, David, and I'm going to begin today with a little trivia question for you. What do the following films have in common? American Psycho, Boys Don't Cry, 13, Bend It Like Beckham, The Decline of Western Civilization, Whale Rider, Monster, The Babadook, Persepolis, The Matrix, Wayne's World, Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, Deep Impact, Twilight, Clueless, and dare I add, Saltburn? Every one of those movies was directed by a woman, which is why we're here today as we celebrate Women's History Month by looking at some women behind the camera. Here's another list of films with something in common. Children of a Lesser God, Awakenings, The Prince of Tides, The Piano, Lost in Translation, Little Miss Sunshine, The Hurt Locker, An Education, The Kids Are All Right, Winter's Bone, Zero Dark 30, Selma, Lady Bird, Little Women, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, Coda, The Power of the Dog, Women Talking, Anatomy of a Fall, Past Lives, and Barbie. That is a list of films directed by women that were nominated for a Best Picture Oscar. Although it may be alarming that there are only 22 films on that list and over 500 films have been Best Picture nominees since the Academy Awards began, 18 of those 22 Best Picture nominees directed by women have occurred in the last 21 years, suggesting a serious upward trend. 3 of this year's 10 Best Picture nominees, Anatomy of a Fall, Past Lives, Barbie, were directed by women, and hopefully that trend will continue and increase in years to come. In 1977, Italian filmmaker Lena Wertmuller became the first woman to be nominated for Best Director for her film Seven Beauties. A woman nominated for Best Director didn't happen again until 1993 when Jane Campion was nominated for The Piano. So women directors had to wait 50 Oscar years to be recognized by the Academy and then had to wait another 16 until it happened again. The good news is that it has happened 18 times since Campion's Piano nomination. And with the women out there directing films today, these nominations will continue. Today's episode will highlight 7 of the most celebrated female directors working today. They have already proven themselves with powerful, meaningful films and have earned the opportunity to helm more films in the future. Such shifts in the film world occur at a glacial pace, but talented women like Bigelow, Campion, Coppola, DuVernay, Gerwig, Polly, and Zhao are making it possible for even more women to get the opportunity to direct. I'd like to start by mentioning 4 women who paved the way for the women that I just mentioned. 3 were actresses turned directors, while the other is definitely the OG in this category. Ida Lupino was an actress who got to direct some of the films in which she starred in the 50s, which was extremely rare for the time. She has 42 directing credits, 8 being feature films, and the rest TV work, including episodes of Gilligan's Island and The Twilight Zone. Lee Grant is an Oscar-winning actress and 4-time Oscar nominee who also went behind the camera. She directed mostly television movies and shows, but has 8 theatrical films in her directing credits, including several critically acclaimed documentaries. You may know Penny Marshall as Laverne on Laverne and Shirley, but she was also an accomplished director. Marshall directed 4 episodes of Laverne and Shirley before going on to direct popular films such as A League of Their Own and Big. And the OG previously mentioned is Alice Guy. And looking at her filmography is like looking at Jimmy Fox's stats in the baseball encyclopedia. Alice Guy, or Alice Guy Blaché, was a writer, producer, cinematographer, and director who made movies from the late 1890s through the 1920s. Guy is credited as the first woman to ever direct a movie. She also was in the production business as she and her husband started the Solex Film Company in 1910. Guy has 463 directing credits, and she oversaw over 600 different films. Her Jimmy Fox numbers include directing 60 films in 1900, 47 in 1904, 58 in 1905, 44 in 1906, and 42 in 1912. Killing it, Alice. Granted, many of these were what we'd consider shorts, but that's what movies were at the time. Some of them very, very short, but she was a pioneer nonetheless. Guy once said, quote, "My youth, my lack of experience, my sex, all conspired against me," end quote. While that might be true, it didn't stop her from accomplishing great things, including being inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame in 2013. And she went into the New Jersey Hall of Fame with Thomas Paine, Whitney Houston, and Joe Piscopo. That was one rabbit hole I could have done without descending. Alice Guy was the subject of an excellent documentary that I highly recommend. It's from 2018, narrated by Jodie Foster, and titled Be Natural, The Untold Story of Alice Guy Blaché. It's an amazing story, and she was an amazing woman. And here are just a few more amazing women Alice helped pave the way for, not only to direct, but to write and produce films as well. And we are going to begin with, and these are going to be presented alphabetically, we're going to start with Kathryn Bigelow. It took 82 years, but a woman finally won a Best Director Oscar when Kathryn Bigelow took home the honor for her film The Hurt Locker in 2009. Bigelow also directed the Oscar-nominated film Zero Dark 30. She produced both Zero Dark 30 and The Hurt Locker. Non-Oscar films directed by Bigelow include the excellent horror film Near Dark, The Loveless with Willem Dafoe, and of course, Point Break. And Point Break is some phenomenal cheese. Oh, that's just wonderful. Next up is Jane Campion. New Zealander Jane Campion became the third woman to win a Best Director Oscar in 2021 for The Power of the Dog, a film she also wrote and produced. Campion also wrote and produced The Piano in 1993, which won 3 Oscars and earned her a Best Director nomination, at the time only the second woman ever to be nominated for Best Director. Next is Sofia Coppola. Now, Sofia Coppola's father may be one of the most famous directors in film history, but she has proven herself to be much more than a mere Nepo baby. Sofia earned a Best Director nomination for Lost in Translation in 2003. She won a Best Original Screenplay Oscar for that same film, which is wonderful if you haven't seen it. Bill Murray, Scarlett Johansson, it's just phenomenal. It's a special film. That's the best way to describe it. Sofia Coppola also wrote and directed The Virgin Suicides, Marie Antoinette, and the remake of The Beguiled. I recommend all 3 of those films quite highly. I'm a fan of Coppola's, and I trust films that she's involved in, unless she's acting in Godfather Part 3. But that was not her fault. I blame her dad for that one. Next is Ava DuVernay. Now, Ava DuVernay's filmography isn't as large as the other women on this list, but I wanted to include her because she directed one of the best documentaries I have ever seen. DuVernay wrote and directed 13th, which is, as only IMDb can describe, quote, an in-depth look at the prison system in the United States and how it reveals the nation's history of racial inequality, end quote. I think it's one of the most important documentaries in the past decade, and I was happy to see it nominated for a Best Documentary Oscar in 2017. DuVernay also directed Selma, which chronicled the 1965 Civil Rights March from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. Next up, and you've heard this name before here in Cinema Wellman, Greta Gerwig. And I've said quite a bit about Greta Gerwig in the past couple of years since she has become a trusted director here at Cinema Wellman. I've not seen her directorial debut Nights and Weekends yet, but she is a big 3 for 3 in the other films she has written and directed. That trio being Lady Bird, Little Women, and of course, Barbie. I will see anything she directs going forward, which means I'm in for some kind of Chronicles of Narnia thing for Netflix? Okay, Greta, you got it. Next is Sarah Polley. I first noticed Sarah Polley and Timothy Olyphant in the same film in the 1999 film Go. And she was the main character in that film, which is great fun if you haven't seen it. It's just called Go. Polley has since moved behind the camera as a writer and director. She has written and directed 2 exceptional films, Women Talking and Away From Her. Polley was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay in 2006 for Away From Her, which is an exceptional film. Julie Christie, even thinking about it makes me want to cry. And Polley won that same award, Best Adapted Screenplay, in 2022 for Women Talking. Her next project appears to be a Bambi reboot of all things. Not sure what's going on there, animated, live action. I don't know what they're doing. Who knows? And last, only because this list was alphabetical, is Chloe Zhao. Chloe Zhao became the second woman to win a Best Director Oscar in 2020 for the film Nomadland, which she also wrote and produced. So as far as women winning a Best Director Oscar, it took 82 years to get to Bigelow's win, then 11 years to Zhao's win, and then only 2 years to Campion's win. And maybe that glacial pace is speeding up a bit. Or is it climate change? Well, that's a wrap from here at Cinema Wellman for our special salute to women in film. Hopefully these 7 talented filmmakers have finally shattered that glass ceiling beyond repair. Keep an eye out for films directed by these and other women. They are great storytellers who have stories to tell, and a lot of those stories just can't be told by men. Well, we hope you're back with us again next week as we take a look at the best and worst films we screened here in the month of March. And spoiler alert, a bunch of them were made by women. And until then, take care.